So Keir Starmer has come clean and said that the reason that he removed Margaret Thatcher's portrait from his study was because he disliked images and pictures of people staring down at him, and it reflects a personal discomfort with the idea of human presence in a work environment. And this choice aligns with a general preference for landscapes over portraits in studies, as landscapes can offer a calming and serene backdrop without the psychological weight or scrutiny that portraits sometimes bring. Starmer's inclination towards landscapes speaks of their ability to create a sense of space, calm, focus, qualities that benefit more intellectual labour. A more austere approach, reminiscent of Carthusian or Carmelite monastic cells, embraces minimalism and functional simplicity. Something that oddly, I know this is my little office, but I aspire to simplicity. Say I, looking around in this sort of baroque chaos. This baroque is about a broken pearl. But Carmelite or Carthusian cells were designed for silence and deep contemplation, with bare walls or perhaps a single unobtrusive religious symbol, an icon of the Virgin Mary, or probably even an unadorned cross without even the figure of Christ. For individuals who like work in silence, as I do, the aesthetic can be highly conducive to concentration, that aesthetic of austerity. It strips away distractions, allowing the mind to focus on the task at hand. And my preference for silence is something that resonates with and was heavily influenced by the working philosophy of animators like Richard Harris, like Ken Harris and Richard Williams. I'm mixing them up there, but it's not that impossible. Richard Williams asked Ken Harris what sort of music he listened to, and he said, "Don't be ridiculous. I can't do two things at once." And Williams was renowned for his meticulous craftsmanship in animation, and his studio was often referred to as the monastery. I remember visiting it when I was 11, and I'd been educated in monasteries anyway, so it was very much a home from home, and I kept in touch throughout his life. And I learned a great deal from Richard Williams, both from admiring what he did and from following his example. This intense, disciplined environment where silence and focus are the key to creativity, and that discipline I find is very useful, and it is monastic. And having been a monk, I appreciate that rigor, where you can go from doing this job to that job at the flick of a finger, flick of a switch, because you just focus. And that is something that the Richard Williams studio was very good at doing. It would flick from doing these amazing adverts to focusing on the thief and the cobbler, once, whatever it was called at the time. And the studio fostered some of the greatest talents in modern animation: Russell Hall, Eric Goldberg, who went on to Disney, Tony White, who wrote a wonderful book about animation, about how to do it, Errol LeCaine, who was the most fantastic illustrator. Russell Hall is smooth, character-driven animation style. Eric Goldberg, who famous for the genie in Aladdin, his inventive, elastic animation is a masterclass in timing and personality, but established in the Williams studio in 13 Soho Square. Tony White is advocate of traditional animation techniques, worked on numerous projects, authored books on animation. He was responsible for the look of the Pink Panther Strikes Again, the one with the pastiche of Julie Andrews running past the screen, which is being watched in a black and white film in a black and white cinema. It is so beautiful. Errol LeCaine, his atmospheric and richly detailed backgrounds, and then his children's illustrations, his children's books, which are just stunning. The Sailor and the Devil, which I think I think I have seen versions of that on YouTube. And Uli Meyer, who is a versatile animator and director. Meyer worked on various films and commercials, and has been instrumental in trying to bring the wonderful art of St. Trinian's, the art of Ronald Searle, to the cinema, and the Molesworth characters. Williams' studio was famously disciplined, which allowed these animators to grow and refine their skills in an environment that encouraged perfection and deep focus, and preference for austerity, as seen in the monastic spaces, in the serious working spaces, can be reflected in modern study design by limiting visual clutter or limiting clutter. I think I can switch out visual clutter, but I can't switch out vocal clutter. And neutral, natural tones. I can understand why people might go for landscapes or minimalist art pieces, and this encourages introspection and limits external distraction. For someone who works best in silence, the austere environment is not just a physical space, but a mental one, allowing for clarity and productivity. And this debate between landscapes, portraits, or a more monastic austerity boils down to a personal inclination. For Sir Keir, landscapes provide a non-intrusive backdrop, conducive to focus, while portraits might feel like unwelcome observers. In my case, someone who's been brought up with simplicity and austerity, as championed by Richard Williams, I like to surround myself with the tools of my trade. I like to write everything out. I like to have things written down, and I like to I like to turn my space into a collective memory, into a memory palace. I sort of know where everything is, and I don't need to read it, but I know where it is. And once it moves, I have no idea. I have no idea what was there. That's the misery of this one. So people who clean my office run the risk of destroying literally everything that I'm thinking about. But it seems to me the only way to do 2 or 3 jobs at the same time, to have a space which echoes that multiplicity, and it's the most effective working condition that I can think of, because every part of my space reflects my goal, creating an environment that fosters deep, uninterrupted work. And the removal of Thatcher's portrait, if it's purely decorative, it serves no purpose. From Starmer's study might have caused a stir, but ultimately it highlights the importance of tailoring one's workroom to one's needs.